Hey everyone, what I've got here for you today is a deck tech on an extended deck I've been playing for a while now. As you can see, it's a Pyromancer Ascension deck. It's based around this enchantment, Pyromancer Ascension. What you do is you just get one of these set up with two counters on it, and then you just gain incredible inevitability. All your spells are doubled. You just draw a bunch of cards. You can even take infinite turns or get infinite mana, and you just run over your opponents that way. So we'll move on to the core of the deck, the draw engine. We have 16 draw spells, 4 Preordain, 4 Ponder, 4 Sea Beyond, and 4 Manamorphose. I'll start with the Preordain and Ponder. These spells are amazing. The card selection they give is just ridiculous. If you haven't played a deck with both of these, the playset of both of these in it, I suggest you build one right now. I would never cut any of these from the main deck, or not even in sideboarding. They're just that good. Then we move on to Sea Beyond, which is kind of just the next best option after those two in the format. I wish there was something better, but we just have to use this. I frequently sideboard these out for my better sideboard cards, but in Game 1 I just like to have a faster, more consistent combo because that's my best chance of winning when I don't have the right answers. Then we have 4 Manamorphose. They're not actually that good before you have an active Ascension. One thing they do though is they allow you to play a draw spell and a counter spell in the same turn. You can just leave your mana untapped, and then in response to their spell, Manamorphose for the mana back anyway, and cast your counter spell so you get to draw a card. But once you do have an active Ascension, they're pretty much your best card to draw. You get to draw 2 cards and add 4 mana to your mana pool. It lets you go off up to 2 turns earlier with a Time Warp on turn 4, and it's just great at that point. So we'll move on now to the controlling aspects of the deck. We have 8 burn spells, 4 lightning bolts, 4 burst lightnings. These help activate Ascension. There's some early removal for small creatures that this deck sometimes has trouble with otherwise. And they're also the way you end up killing your opponent, at least in Game 1. We have another option in the sideboard, but without these you can't actually win. Infinite turns just ends up decking yourself. You need something to actually do the 20 damage to him. So that's what these are for. Then we have 8 counterspells, 4 mana leaks, 4 cryptic commands. The mana leaks are for early stuff, early drops like creatures, or in the case of fairies, especially bitter blossoms that it can stop if you're on the play. And Cryptic Command is more of a late game sort of blowout spell. If you can chain these together against aggro, you can stop the rest of the damage for the rest of the game. Against control, it stops their best threats, and it just does whatever you want it to and more. If there's something that you want done, Cryptic Command probably does it. Then we have just the last 4 cards here are 2 Call to Minds and 2 Time Warps. They're the infinite turns combo here. What we do is you have an active Ascension, then you cast a Time Warp for 2 extra turns because it's copied. Then you Call to Mind for the Time Warp, and you already have a Call to Mind in your graveyard, so you Call to Mind for the Time Warp and the other Call to Mind. Then the next turn you can rinse and repeat and take infinite turns, find your burn spells, and deal them 20 with that. So it doesn't always happen, but it is a nice option to have there available for late game. So we'll move on now to the lands. We have mostly basic, actually, 7 islands and 3 mountains. I just have mostly islands because you want to be able to start with Ponder or Preordain. That's your ideal turn 1 play, and having a mountain doesn't help you do that. Then we have 4 Scalding Tarns and 4 Cascade Bluffs. They're mana fixing. Without the Cascade Bluffs, it would be really hard to play this deck because you need the triple blue for Cryptic Command and also red mana. So those allow you to be a lot more flexible with your mana base, even in this enemy color deck. Then Then we just have these sort of miser lands. The Dread Statuary as a man land for late game against control. Just another win condition. If you can't draw enough burn or you can't get an active Ascension. Then there's Mystifying Maze against some mid-range type aggro decks where they want to attack with just one creature or not a bunch of creatures. It can really stop their whole game plan just with a land. And it's helped me win a lot of games that I probably shouldn't have without it. So that's the mana base. And one thing to note about it, I only play 20 lands because of the Ponder and Preordain. You can always find your land drops if you need them, and you don't really need more than 4 lands to go off with this deck. 4 lands is about the optimum, and then once you're taking infinite turns or drawing a bunch of cards, you'll just draw all your lands that you need anyway. So that's that. Then we'll move on to the sideboard. We have 8 counterspells in the sideboard for a total of 16 in the 75. I just think these are a really good choice for the metagame right now. There's a bunch of control and fairies and ramp decks, and all of them have things that are just must counter spells for blue decks, and having the counter spell is really key in all of those matchups. So just being able to board up to 16 and be just a super permission control deck is awesome. Then we have 2 Sphinx of Jwar. Once you do that, you would want to have another win condition besides your Pyromancer Ascension, because like I said, you board out your Sea Beyonds and some of your burn to fit those in. So you want to have a win condition that doesn't rely on those cards, that you can just play through after you've countered everything, and just it's a 4-turn clock. And it also is important that it has Shroud, because it still blanks the removal. There are no creatures in the deck, so I don't want to give them something to path or remove just as soon as it's played. So the Shroud is really important here. Then we have 4 Volcanic Fallouts. These are against fairies and aggressive decks. They're just your wrath kind of when you go to the control plan. And against fairies, they're just ridiculous. You can kill everything pretty much, and they don't really have an answer to it, except for triple Cyanavona, which if they have that, you're already losing anyway. So that's what they're there for. Then we have the 1 Pithing Needle. This is also kind of a mize, but it stops a bunch of things like the fairies Jace, and more recently sort of Feast and Famine. You can name that. They won't be able to equip it. Against the Necrotic Ooze combo, it just wrecks their whole game plan. I just have 1 because I didn't really have room for more, and I also thought that I would be able to draw into it with my abundant draw spells, and it's not really that good in lots of matchups, so I wanted to dedicate my sideboard to more of that. So that's the whole deck, and I've been playing it for a while. I've had really good success with it. It's a good metagame choice right now, I think. And if you have any comments, just leave them below, and I'll see you later.